Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "You Want to Do Your Job Now? I Will Hold You to It." Setting the stage, this story takes place in the summer of 2020. I joined my boyfriend on a camping trip to the woods, planning to relax while he worked. We both work in tree removal, but I didn't have a current project. I accidentally got a job as admin support for my boyfriend's boss after hanging around the office one day and giving Excel tips. He didn't know what Control+F did. At first I helped with building spreadsheets, reports, and sending emails for him. Every day he asked a new task of me and every day I did it well. Eventually, I had developed a schedule and even included running programs to check for mistakes while I took calls to increase productivity. My boss, owner of the company, decided he had nothing to do with me there, so he went home, different state and time zone, and I ran things. There was about 3 months of this. I wouldn't really hear from him except for the occasional, "How much money did we make this week?" Or, "Has anyone told you you're doing a great job?" I'm a very modest person, so believe me when I say, I was great at this job. Nothing got by me. I kept everything organized and always knew where to find any kind of information I needed. A few weeks into the 4th month, my boss came back and brought his family. His wife would hang around the office and watch me like a hawk. If I took too long of bathroom breaks, or doodled while on conference calls, she would tell me that I was on company time. And honestly, I didn't mind too much. She was very nice a lot of the time and I'm pretty easygoing. During a stand down, my boyfriend and I went home and were having dinner with his family when my boss's wife called. She was angry from the start of the call. "Where is ex-employee's paperwork?" I told her it was scanned and in the locked folders in our company files. Walked her calmly through how to find it. She then yelled at me for not organizing files. Like I said, I always knew exactly where everything was. Everything she asked for I told her where to find just off the top of my head. She demanded that due to my incompetence she wanted to organize all files from now on because that was her job and this was her company. I was a bit upset but didn't let her know and apologized for any mistakes. Remember, she and her husband had not been present or in much contact for months. Malicious compliance. Following this call, every file, paper scrap, receipt, etc. that needed filing I sent her in an email stating that it needed filing. She eventually told me I didn't need to send her everything and to just file it, but I let her know that due to my history of incompetence, I didn't want to jeopardize the company or create issues by misfiling and that it was important to me that she did her job so she could be present in her company. She hated filing. I don't know why she did what she did, but I never let her get. The next one is titled, "Teamster Force Me You Will Pay Me." I drive for a freight company. There are 2 job classifications. We have 13 terminals in 5 states. What we pick up today, we deliver up to 600 miles away tomorrow. Those drivers bid these line haul jobs and are paid by the mile, plus all on the clock time is paid by the hour. When a driver gets to his destination, the company pays for the hotel. I am designated a city driver. We do the pickups and deliveries plus all loading dock work. We are paid by the hour, overtime after 8 hours. Important later. We operate in the north where winter weather can ice the road. No matter how bad the weather, our drivers are sent on their run unless the highway patrol closes the road. Which is what happened. The line haul drivers were called to stay home because of this. Because these drivers had to go on their runs the next night. They lost a day's pay. In the contract for line haul drivers. With no deliveries coming through, there was little work the next day. When I got to work the next day, the manager forced me and 2 others to make road runs to get the freight through. While they can't really force us, nice to have a change once in a while. I start at 8:30 a.m. and was assigned to drive to a terminal 200 miles away, continue to another terminal 80 miles from there, then 250 miles home. Regulations are as follows: you are allowed to work 14 hours including breaks, with 11 being driving time. It took me 6 hours to cover the first 200 miles plus 1/2 hour on duty at the first terminal. The 80 miles to the far terminal was a nightmare. Cars and trucks in the ditch with glare ice making uphills difficult. 3¼ hours to make 80 miles. They had shipments to go back with me that had to go. Gee, their city drivers had the same slippery road as I did, so 2¾ hours on duty waiting for a load for me to haul back. The math said 9¼ hours driving time plus 3¼ hours on duty waiting time plus 1 hour break time equals not enough hours to start the 250-mile 4-hour, in good weather, drive home. They put me in the hotel for the mandatory 10 hours off duty. The roads were better the next day. I made the 250 miles home in 5 hours. 45 minutes to service the truck and finish the log sheets and I was done. I told the boss they had to pay me on the clock for all hours from when I punched in yesterday until when I punched out today, less 1 hour break time. We only clock off for 1/2 hour lunch, drive time plus on duty time plus 10 hours paid in the hotel. 28¼ hours with everything over 8 hours paid at time and 1/2. $707.50 for getting it done. They refused to pay me the overtime and paid me like I was a over-the-road driver. 530 miles 0.48 per mile equals $254.40 plus on duty time of 4¾ hours, $20 per hour equals $95, total $349.40. Teamsters have a grievance system for pay disputes. I filed my grievance as the $349.40 line haul pay doesn't apply to me as I was forced. As an hourly employee, I am entitled to time 1/2 for all hours over 8. They owed me $358.10. I won. The next one is titled, "You Want to Play Games?" Sure, but I bet I'm better at them. I drive a truck out of the same warehouse every night. I show up at midnight, get my paperwork, and deliver the load on that paperwork. Most nights I get the same run, which is scheduled to leave the warehouse at 2:30. I show up so early in case they need me to pull a different load. I've been there for close to 2 years now and always got along with everybody for my first year. About 9 months ago they hired a new dispatcher, the person who hands me my paperwork, and she started implying she was interested in me. She would compliment my looks and ask about my day and stuff like that. After a few months of this I asked her out, she agreed, I scheduled a date and all was well. When the date came up she cancelled last minute and asked to reschedule. She never got back to me and I never reached out again. No big deal, this is pretty typical behavior in modern dating. We still saw each other at work and got along well enough. I treated her like any other coworker and she did the same. That is until about 3 months ago anyway. I came in and got my normal run which leaves at 2:30. Since I have some time to kill I go hang out with a buddy who's close by, something I do quite often and everyone is cool with it. As long as I deliver on time, that's all that matters. I came back at 1:45 and found out my truck needed repairs, so I went into dispatch and asked for a different one. The dispatcher gets snotty and starts yelling at me about how they couldn't track me. We're constantly monitored by GPS while on duty, but I wasn't on duty yet, so there's no need to track me. I argued back for a little bit and eventually just sighed and said, "Can I please just get another truck so I can deliver on time like I had planned?" She throws a key at me and I go do my job just as well as any other day. All goes well for the next 2 months or so. I still see her every day, but I keep conversation to a minimum and do my job. One day I come in and find out they don't have a load for me. That's not uncommon and I get paid just to be on call, so I'm content. I go hang out with a buddy as usual and await the call to either come in for a load or get relieved for the day. She calls at about 1 a.m. and says, "Come in when you get a minute." I say okay and she hangs up. I show up in about 5 to 10 minutes and she tells me that another driver didn't show up for his shift, so she called me in for his run. He actually showed up a few minutes late between the phone call and my arrival, so she gave him his usual run and said they didn't have anything for me. She then proceeds to scold me for taking too long to get there, saying the load would have been late. I would have had about 4 hours to do a 2.5-hour drive. It wouldn't have been late. At this point I'm 99% sure she's screwing with me, so I just say okay and I turn around and leave. About 20 minutes later I get another call saying I have a run. I go in and get the paperwork to start my day. This run was on a tight schedule due to poor planning. It could have left the warehouse earlier but it didn't, and now there's only a 15-minute margin of error. I notice there's an issue with the trailer. It's nothing dangerous, but it's technically illegal and shouldn't be on the road. Normally I would just pull the trailer and report the issue when I got back since it isn't dangerous, but not today. I bring the trailer to the on-site shop for repairs but the mechanic couldn't fix it. At this point dispatch is calling me asking why I haven't left the warehouse yet, so I fill them in. I tell them I'm not pulling a trailer with any flaws and we need to load the product into another trailer. They agree because it's illegal for them to make me drive a vehicle I'm not comfortable with, and we get started. It took about an hour to move the contents of the trailer into a new one, so at this point I'm running about 30 to 45 minutes late. I just sat in my truck browsing Reddit while the warehouse did all the work. I ended up getting to my delivery about an hour late, which makes dispatch and the whole company look bad. I apologized to the customer and explained the problem. I've delivered there before and they like me, so it's all good. Dispatch hasn't played any games with me since. I'm hoping they got the message that I won't be a pushover. The next one is titled, Technically Mr. Principal, I'm Following the Rules. This was few years ago. I was a senior in high school. At the time, an 18-year-old male, I was a major smartbutt and was very nihilistic due to my past. For a little context, I have an IEP at my school that allowed me to use my phone for music therapy since I was diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety, Asperger's syndrome, and PTSD. By law, teachers have to follow without questions or overruling, and if anyone tried to stop me they could get fined, fired, etc. IEPs are no joke for a reason. My senior year, the old principal resigned and we got Sergeant Hardbutt in his place. Starting out he changed absolutely everything and was very strict with it, I'm assuming to assert dominance to show he's no pushover. One of the biggest changes was a zero tolerance to digital devices in or out of the classroom. That included everything from phones, Bluetooth earbuds, headphones, smartwatches, etc. Teachers loved it until they figured out that it also applied to them, so they said screw it and didn't enforce it. Though, trying to listen to music in between classrooms was like trying to smuggle bombs onto a post-9/11 plane. I had a lot of the same teachers from year before, so they knew my story and I was a good student, but I had a sense of humor and hard-headed, and they knew I could find a loophole in anything to get my way or prove my point. It all starts with a very shitty Monday morning. I was on edge as I always was at that school and decided to listen to some hard-hitting brutal death metal. It's therapeutic. I got stopped by Sergeant Hardbutt and this is what took place. Principal, are you new here? Me, no. Why? Principal, okay, give me your phone now. Me, I can't, I have in my paper. Principal, I don't care, according to the handbook, no MP3 players, phones, any digital devices at all. I'm a man of my word, so hand it over. At this point I can feel my anxiety rising, my hands were shaking and my eyes were getting warm and watery, and I couldn't breathe. I needed to get out of there quickly before I bursted. The office was far from where my emergency anxiety meds, and I knew I wasn't going to make it, so I tried walking to the bathroom till the principal yelled, "Hey," and forcefully grabbed my shoulder like a Karen. So as an irrational reaction I turned and right-hooked him. He went down to the ground and everyone was laughing and going crazy about it, so I just booked it and ran. Thankfully my favorite teacher Mr. Place managed to catch me and embrace me to calm down. I ended up passing out in his arms due to hyperventilating. After regaining consciousness in the nurse's office, there were a few cops, Mr. Place, my mum, and the principal with an ice pack on his chin and a bloody towel over his nose. I was questioned on exactly what happened, and after hearing my side, Mr. Place's side, and the camera footage, everyone sided with me and my mum went ballistic because she busted her ass to get me comfortable in school and she had her a few altercations with teachers harassing me. Unsurprisingly, I got a week's suspension, but I wasn't punished at home. I decided to follow his rules but with my own little twist. I studied the student handbook front to cover and went for a quick gander in the basement of my house to find my dad's things from the 80s and 90s. Dad and I share a lot of interests and he got me into all types of heavy metal and punk from a young age, so he passed this stuff down to me. After digging around I was able to find his Walkman, cassette player, and a bunch of cassette tapes. I took my favorites of all time, Kill 'Em All by Metallica, Vulgar Display of Power by Pantera, Korn's first album, 40 Ounces to Freedom, and self-titled album by Sublime, and lastly Tomb of the Mutilated by Cannibal Corpse. It was a hard choice, but I didn't want them to crack in my pocket. The first day I was back into school, I was talk of the school because I laid out the principal. I'm embarrassed and felt bad about it, but it was in the past. I saw Sergeant Hardbutt by my first class, Mr. Place's class, so I stepped to the side and popped in a cassette tape. Walking back, Sergeant Hardbutt smirked and told me to step over to have a talk. Principal, looks like a week didn't give you enough time to think, come with me. Me, I'm sorry? I'm not breaking any rules. Principal, boy, don't make me out to be stupid, you obviously have your phone and listening to music. Last time I checked, my policy is still in effect. Me, right, so technically I'm following your policy of no digital devices. Principal, fine then, you want to play smart? Prove it then. I proceeded to pull out the Walkman and some of the cassettes. He looked very confused. Me, see sir, you said no digital device. I have right here is a Walkman with the original wired headphones. Since cassettes are analog and you never said anything about no analog devices, I'm within my full right to jam out on this in and out of the classroom. Sergeant Hardbutt gets red in his face and starts stumbling over his words to rebuttal me. I mean, you say you're a man of your word, so how cowardly would you look if you let a teenager get to you and update the handbook? I see no harm with this, it abides with your rules. Sergeant Hardbutt grunts, then walk to the neighboring class as I exhale in relief and I start to feel my anxiety go down. I walk in and nod to Mr. Place. He closes the door and makes sure that Sergeant Hardbutt isn't nearby and just bust out laughing. I'd say I stood my ground on that one. The next one is titled, At Closing Time I Am Still the Manager. So I was 19 at the time and a shift supervisor at a local sub shop, Planet Sub. This was my first supervisory, managerial position, and for how shy and generally insecure I was at the time, I am amazed I had the gall to do this. To be fair, it had been a long day, and I had a second job that would give me more hours if I wanted. I was in charge of closing the store, and I had had a couple of staff call in, leaving me and 2 workers to deal with a busy night of sandwiches, pissy and entitled customers, and no breaks save for quick restroom ones. The store closed at 10, and we were for sure going to be shutting things down at 10 minutes 0 seconds and 1 millisecond, clean as fast as we could, and be free. All of us had school classes the next day early. Around 9:30 I answered the phone to a terse gentleman demanding to know when we closed because he needed to pick up sandwiches. I told him we shut the doors at 10, so he would have to be quick, and I offered to take his order over the phone so he could just pay when he gets here. He said he would have to look at the menu, and rudely asked how he would have any idea what he wanted without seeing the menu. I replied that I had no idea if it was his first or 5th time here. He scoffed, said he would be by soon, before 10. I kept going on about work, as we all got the closing and cleaning things done ahead of time that we could. As 10 p.m. neared I kept glancing out front to see if he was here, but nope. Once 10 p.m. hit we got going on what we needed to finish, food covered, stored in the walk-in, counters cleared, etc. There were a few people finishing up eating in the lobby, but they looked almost done. At 10:15 an irritated voice called into the kitchen asking, "Is there anybody working here? I would like to place my order." I walked out, and behind the counter told him that we closed 15 minutes ago and the kitchen was shut down. I called half an hour ago and I was told I could come get food still, that you were open, he stated. That was me you spoke to, and at 9:45, not 30 minutes ago to be precise, we were open and I informed you that we closed at 10. It is not 10:15, we are closed, I politely replied. There are people here still eating, so you are clearly open, he gestured to the people putting on their coats and walking toward the door. Politely and with a forced friendly smile I said they had put their order in before 10 and just finished, the oven is turned off and the food it put away. I don't ducking care, make me food, he sputtered. Sir, I cannot do that, I replied, we are closed, everything is put away, and the registers are shut down for the night, we open at 8 a.m. tomorrow. "I demand to speak to the manager, right now," he hollered. At this moment, folks, I had a moment of clarity that I did not want to take this in the slightest, and I wanted to be a sarcastic and immature prick. I did not get paid enough for this, and I was fed up with the day. "One moment, I will get him," I said politely with a genuine smile. I then turned around, removed my hat and apron, hung them on a hood, and turning back to face him stated, "Hi, I'm Jeff, I am the manager tonight." I heard cackles of laughter from the other employees in the back, who had been listening to all of it. "I am calling tomorrow for the store manager, and you will all be fired," he stated, as he stormed out. "His name is Sean. Have a good night," I shouted after him. "He should be here by 7. He turned around at the door. "You just lost a very valuable customer. This is the last time I am coming here." "Thank God for that," I said as he stepped out, turning around to flip me off on his way out. I then quickly locked the door and made sure he left. I called my manager and he just laughed at it. He was a cool guy, total stoner who was laid back. That guy never did come back, but he gave me a delightful memory and story. The last one is titled, "Sure, I'll do clean the tank." Little backstory before I start. I'm a metal whisperer, welder, at a factory that makes fluid tanks in all shapes and sizes. Everything is done in-house, starting from parts being cut from sheets of steel. For those who don't weld, it can be messy, with the weld having a brown haze that can be whipped away and a few BBs around the weld that can be brushed off, or at the very least chipped. Being a factory and as being timed, welders would rush and miss a weld or two. To combat this, we will wire brush all our welds to notice if we missed one. This also helps the cleaners, as some boxes will be very hard to reach into and clean any inside welds, which we try to limit. Cleaning the welds and the box is still the cleaner's job though. For those that don't do cleaning, it is a shot job with crap pay with a high turnover rate. It's hot, but you need to wear protective gear, which only makes it hotter. Because people leave all the time, they can stand around and talk without fear of being fired. I've never seen every worker doing someone at once. I do a pretty good job at cleaning my welds. One tank though has a spot that collects BBs. I wire brush all the haze off and chip a few BBs off, but there's a lot and didn't get all. Not my job anyways, send it. A couple days later the welder supervisor gets me telling me cleaners rejected a tank. I'm thinking missing weld or something. Surprise surprises, half the cleaners are still ungeared, sitting down talking, drinking coffee. The head cleaner was the one who rejected it because I didn't remove all the BBs. My supervisor said fighting them isn't worth it as we have no pull on him. The cleaner, who I'll call Pedro because he likes to diddle 10-year-olds, is the only cleaner that has been around since the company started. He can get a better job than this, nor can the company get a better worker than him, so he does what he wants and he trains the new guys. I decided I'll clean the box just for him. Metal from the mill has what's called mill scale, which also helps prevent rust. Welding and wire brushing will remove it and it will rust pretty fast. Spray anti-splatter and whip it down with solvent and it will start rusting by the time the forklift picks it up. Being the good clean welder I am, I gauge the crap out of the metal, chipping every last BB. I soaked the tank in cleaner after wire wheeling, also leaves some marks all around my welders. This thing was as clean as I could get it. It being summer, the cleaners are dropping like flies while the welders keep outputting boxes. The cleaners got lectured on standing around with a backlog. The next day, they get an even larger meeting about how slow productivity of them has caused boxes to rust before they could be cleaned. My boxes. It's been a year now and Pedro still hasn't refused any box I send for cleaning reasons. Thanks for listening.